It's Friday, January, April, October 3rd. No, wait, I was just looking outside. I guess it's April 3rd. Someone needs to let Mother Nature know. I am Lisa Rufianj, and this is TV7.ca News. Once again, we are doing the responsible thing and practicing social distancing. So, welcome to my dining room. Today, we have Karen Armstrong here to talk about us coping with self-isolation. Crystal Lucier has some important updates, and the next city council meeting is being live streamed, and they would like you to submit your questions. All that and more, but first. On March 25th at approximately 4 p.m., St. Albert RCMP responded to a burglary alarm at the Walmart. Now, it was reported that a male was in the electronics section of the store where he spoke with a sales representative and inquired about some iPads. Trying to distract the employee by making a phone call, the man then started grabbing multiple iPads and putting them into a large bag. Now, the employee tried to stop the individual, but the male did indicate he had a gun, so rightfully the employee backed off. Now, the unknown male ran from the electronics department and exited the rear of the store, setting off the exit door alarm. He is described as being Caucasian, wearing a dark baseball cap and a black fall jacket. The suspect had a beard and was carrying 2 large bags. He was also wearing COVID-19 protective gear, including clear plastic gloves and a medical mask. The employee was not hurt in the robbery, nor was any firearms seen. The St. Albert RCMP are asking for the public's help to identify the unknown male. Now, if you have information regarding this or any crime, you're asked to contact the St. Albert RCMP detachment at 780-458-7700. To help us keep up with some of the changes, here is Crystal Lucier with this week's Financial Focus.
I hope that everybody's staying well out there. I know that we're into our 3rd week of live video and coming to you through isolation. I hope that everyone's doing well, and I know that this is getting a little bit crazy for everybody. There have been a lot of changes through government in financial options, and there's a lot of confusion. So I just wanted to nail down a couple of things, very specific questions that I've been receiving on a daily basis in layman's terms so that everybody feels more comfortable with what their position is. The first is that indeed the government has made it illegal to evict tenants that are renting right now. So if you are a renter, it is expected that you're going to work with your landlord to try to come up with a solution if you can't pay your full rent. They do have options in terms of mortgage deferral, but it doesn't mean that you don't have to pay your rent. There are still costs related to rental properties, such as property taxes, interest on the mortgage, but you're encouraged to work with your landlord to see what it is that you can pay and do what you can to defer whatever excess. We want to make sure that everybody can afford to live and stay in their space. You can't be kicked out at the moment, but you are encouraged to work with your landlord. If you have a mortgage or you do have a rental property, you're encouraged to contact your bank and do a deferral on your mortgage if possible to help save some of that cost. The economy is continually on a downslide right now. We're all in this together, and everybody's encouraged to work together. The government has come out with some programs. I've received numerous calls about the Alberta Isolation Support Program. It is very, very difficult to get through. It's more likely that you're going to get through late at night or very early in the morning, and I'm talking 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, than it is during the day. There's an excess number of Albertans that are attempting to get that isolation support. Now, please remember that you only qualify for the Alberta isolation support if you've had to isolate yourself. So if you have a family member that's been ill, a dependent that's been ill that you've had to care for, or if you yourself have had to be in isolation because of travel or sickness, that's when you apply for this Alberta support. The Alberta support is a one-time payment through e-transfer of $1,146. Make sure that you're only applying if it's applicable to you specifically. Now, if you have lost your job, and there are a number of Canadians that have lost their jobs recently, we have an unprecedented number of EI applications that are going through the system, both in Canada and the US. What the government is asking us to do is try to self-determine whether you qualify for EI or you qualify for the CERB. Now, the CERB does not come up until April the 6th. CERB is intended for people that do not qualify for EI. So if you had a job and you were laid off, you qualify for EI. If you're laid off due to medical leave or sickness, there will not be that 1 week waiting period. You go on and apply for EI. Your employer must have issued you an ROE. So employers, if you are laying off staff, you need to issue those ROEs, even if they're temporary leave or temporary illness ROEs, so that your staff members can apply for EI. If you don't qualify for EI, if you are self-employed, or if you didn't have enough hours to qualify for EI, then you're encouraged to apply for the CERB. You will qualify for that Canada Emergency Response Benefit. Now, the CERB comes live April 6th through My Account CRA online. So if you don't have a My Account with CRA, you're encouraged to do that now. What they're asking, so that we don't crash the system the way that we have with the Alberta Isolation Benefit, they're asking that you apply for the CERB based on your birth month. So if you were born in January, February, or March, you will apply on April the 6th. April, May, and June, you'll apply on April the 7th, and so on and so on. So please only apply on the days that are applicable for you, because you're going to overload the system again. And then we're going to end up with a situation like we have with the Alberta Isolation Benefit, where nobody can get into the system to apply. This is a difficult situation for everybody, but try to stay positive. Everyone is going through this. I know there's a lot of people concerned about their credit scores and their finances and being able to pay their bills. There are options out there. Don't be scared to take advantage of those options, but please, please, please only take advantage of those options if they're necessary to you. If you are still able to work, don't make application for the Alberta Isolation Benefit. There are a lot of people right now that are struggling, and we need to do our parts. This is Crystal Lucier with Preferred Tax Solutions, and this is TV7.ca.
I want money.
To help stop the spread of COVID-19, the next St. Albert City Council meeting will be held on Monday, April 6th at 2 p.m. and will be streamed via YouTube to the city's website. In order to comply with physical distancing and group gathering directives, the public gallery will now be closed. The public are encouraged to stay involved by watching the live stream of the meeting, and members of the public who wish to address council on a specific item will be able to do so by sending an email to legislative@stalbert.ca. Requests must include the title of the item on the agenda that you wish to address. And please note, you will be speaking to council at the time of the specific item, not at the beginning of the meeting. All requests to speak to an item on the April 6th, 2020 council agenda must be received at the aforementioned email address by 10 a.m. on April 6th, 2020. For a complete listing of the meeting's proposed agenda, please check out the city's website. Before heading into self-isolation, Memory Roth was down at Wow Factor Mosaics, where she talked to Carol Donald on this week's Art in the City.
I'm here at the Big Lake Studios with mosaic artist Carol Donald. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Memory.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming.
So, Carol, you've been in Big Lake Studio for a little while.
Yes.
And have you been in St. Albert for very long? What is your connection?
I moved here in the early 80s after finishing college in the States, and I grew up in Edmonton, so it was kind of like coming home, but I was attracted to the sort of small town feel of St. Albert.
Well, that's great. So you've been a mosaic artist for a while, but did you first start off as a mosaic artist?
No, I didn't, Memory. I think like a lot of artists, I went through several sort of stages. I started out doing watercolors for a number of years, and then I had a period where I did printmaking, and then when I was finished exploring that, I moved on to acrylics, and then I had a job at a tile and stone store, and I started taking home leftovers and bits and things, and I got into mosaic art after that.
Carol, when you are doing your mosaic pieces, what type of art or what type of pieces do you make?
I work with a number of materials: tile, glass, stone, found objects, things that I've created out of clay, just all kinds of different materials. And most of what I do would be a commission basis, like for residential interiors, so backsplash panels, that kind of thing.
So you're not doing the typical mosaic backsplash, you're doing more of an artistic type of thing. Is that right?
It depends. That's sort of client driven.
Okay. So have you been in any art shows or anything like that in St. Albert?
Years ago, during my printmaking stage, I was in a public show at Profiles, which is now the Art Gallery of St. Albert. And I have had paintings in Grassland Gallery when it was in the West End, so a few places around town.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you do any painting, or are you really sticking just to the mosaics now?
I haven't painted in several years now, so it's pretty well 100% mosaics now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at your table here, and I'm just fascinated with all these pieces of rock and tile. And so can you tell us a little bit about all these things?
Well, I think the fun aspect of mosaics is that you can use just about anything that inspires you. So I have here some scraps of glass that I picked up when I took a glass blowing class in Arizona. Yeah. I have some leftover glass tiles from a tile store in the West End that had a couple of sheets left over. This is just some little sparkly beads from one of my studio mates when she was cleaning house. She gave that to me. I've got beach glass that I picked up on the West Coast. Some pieces of slate that have gone into other work that I've done.
Wow, so anything really goes, hey? I see you have some shells.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. So is it hard to get things the shape you want? Do you use a lot? I see you must have used a lot of tools to cut them. And...
Well, it depends what the material is. Some things I can cut with nippers, or I have a ring saw. Some things like the floor tile, I have a hammer, and I just put them on the floor and hammer them, and whatever shape they break into is what they get used as.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. That's really great. Thank you very much, Carol.
Thanks, Memory.
I'm Memory Roth, and this has been Art in the City with TV7.ca.
Karen Armstrong is a mindset and emotion coach and master hypnotist, and she is here to talk about how we can cope with stress during these interesting and sometimes trying times. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you very much for that. Today, I would like to address some of the stress that we are all feeling at home now. Having our partners home, children home, working from home, and now school from home has proven to be quite stressful for a lot of people. And so just some food for thought is when you're going through this, take a bit of time to self-assess on what exactly it is that is bothering you, and then use some empathy to see what, or even actually talk to your partner and your kids about what is bothering them. Because everybody's experiencing the same thing, and most of us have coping mechanisms like going to the gym and seeing our friends, and for the kids it's play dates and sleepovers in school, and none of us have that now. So we have no way of dealing, or our usual ways of dealing with stress. So this is where love and compassion is very beneficial. It was huge changes came to us with no notice. And it takes time to develop new habits and new routines. So being patient, working together as a team, having compassion and empathy for each other, opening up your communication is very, very important. And please know that any kind of reactions from your partners and your kids, they're not intentional. They just don't know how to deal with these changes, much like yourself. So awareness is key. Sit down, figure out what is causing you the most stress, then make a plan. Like Einstein says, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. So the only way your circumstance is going to change is if you make some changes. So sit down, figure out what's bothering you the most, focus on 1 or 2 items. You can't, change everything in one day. Make a plan and take action. And please work together as a team. Be there for each other. This can bring you guys closer together and deepen your connection. Don't let it tear you apart. Don't let reacting to each other, reacting to the stress, compromise the connection that you guys have. For TV7.ca news, I'm Karen Armstrong from Karen Armstrong Coaching.
Also, prior to the COVID-19 crisis, Stephanie Cordova filmed a piece for us about filing important paperwork. Now that you may find yourself with some extra time at home, perhaps organizing your filing system is just what you need to take a break from binge watching Netflix. Here is this week's Cut the Clutter.
Many clients still struggle with their papers. So unless you run a business out of your home or have a home office, there are very few items that you need to keep for paperwork. Some of the things that I've kept are manuals for high-end furniture and appliances and electronics only. I recently sold 2 televisions on a local buy and sell, and it felt great to be able to include the manuals with them. Home maintenance receipts for the higher ticket items like furnace cleaning or additional insulation in your attic, for instance. It's nice to reference these if your insurance company asks you, or if you're trying to book the next appointment. Mortgage documents or rental agreements are also good to keep. Car maintenance and loan information, this comes in handy when you're trying to sell your vehicle. Health insurance plans and details, unless you have access to these online, then you do not need to keep the papers. Home and auto insurance plans, but only for the current year. Again, this is only if it's not online. A tax folder for your current year taxes and 6 prior years. I do my taxes digitally now, but I always keep all the receipts in a file as I have been audited before. For things like utility bills, discard these after you have confirmation that they have been paid, which is usually on your next billing period. I've had clients tell me that they're keeping their utility bills to compare them year over year, but no 2 years are the same and no 2 months are. And is this really how do you want to spend your time? Which is a great segue to discuss the topic of keeping old university binders and textbooks. I've come across a lot of clients who keep their old textbook and school books. They intend to read them in the future, although they rarely do. So in very fast-paced world, most industries are changing quickly, which makes the old textbooks obsolete. With regular professional development, you will stay current in your career without having to store boxes and boxes of books in your basement. Again, let me ask you, is that really how you want to spend your time? Okay, so back to tips for paperwork. Have a filing system. A cabinet like this or a portable storage box is sufficient. Label all of your files. File your papers regularly. Deal with your papers on a regular basis. So when you receive the mail, go through your papers when you receive them. Clean out old files on a regular basis. I suggest at least once per year. And shred your confidential and personal information. Our local UPS store has a shredding service, as does Staples.
St. Albert RCMP are taking proactive measures in the response to COVID-19. Recognizing the severity of the pandemic, they want to ensure that officers and staff remain healthy along with keeping the public safe. Within the detachment, St. Albert RCMP are following all Alberta Health Services and Alberta government guidelines and mandates for employees returning from travel or who are experiencing symptoms. In addition to increased cleaning of workstations and police vehicles, added disinfectant protocols of the detachment are taking place as well. Now, RCMP are also modifying service delivery within the detachment by restricting public access and are asking you to contact them by phone with any inquiries. Members would also like to assure you that they are still responding to calls for service, but are prioritizing essential policing services to reduce unnecessary contact with the general public. When officers do respond to a complaint in the community where an individual is sick, self-isolating, or showing symptoms of COVID-19, they are following very rigorous safety precautions. Well, that'll do it for this week. Now, if you have any community events or news that you would like to share with our viewers, Please send us an email, as always, at news@tv7.ca. From all of us here at the station, I am Lisa Ruffiange. Please